So welcome. My name is Jaime Molera. I'm here with the very famous, some people would call infamous, I call very famous, Glenn Hammer. Now, many of you know Glenn as the president and CEO of the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry, but just recently, Glenn was tapped to become the president and CEO of the Texas Association of Business. Well, first I want to say my condolences for having to move to Texas, but congratulations, Glenn. That they are very fortunate to have you.
I mean, looking forward to it. I'm just moving from one top five state to another top five state. Both just great states.
Great. Well, I think losing you is going to be a big loss, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this going away interview with you. One, I was starting to get withdrawals because you and I had done a lot of interviews together over the years. Either you interviewing me or I'm interviewing you.
There's a lot of truth to that.
But now that you're leaving, I think you can be very candid about what you really think of the Arizona legislature. So I want to get to the dirty details. But one of the things, honestly, Glenn, you've had a very stellar career here as head of the chamber. What would you say is your proudest accomplishments of your 14 years at the helm?
Well, wow, 14 years is a long time. And first, I want to just say how much I appreciate, Jaime, what you and Molera Alvarez have done over the years. You've been, when we talk about all the big things that the chamber has done, you personally have been involved in I believe every single one of them. So if you had to look at the big ticket items, I would say on a 30,000 foot view, we got involved in all the big items that matter to the state. So whether it was economic development, tax policy, healthcare via Medicaid, immigration issues, trade, my personal favorite, USMCA. I've got a signed, framed Wall Street Journal piece on USMCA being signed by Larry Kudlow. I would say the chamber tackled the big ticket items, and I believe we helped make a difference.
So one of the big things that you started out with when you took over the helm of the Arizona Chamber is that we got into some pretty significant issues, and a lot of it was revolved around, remember, Senate Bill 1070 and the relationships that unfortunately soured both with Mexico and then within the Latino community. You were very aggressively against 1070. You testified against it, and then all of the offshoots of 1070 that were tried to be put in place. It just seems to me, Glenn, that the Arizona Chamber not only was helpful to reverse that image, but you personally felt strongly about why the business community needed to take the lead in getting it rectified.
Yeah, and talking about immigration, one of the things I should have said, and I, as the former state superintendent, very proud of what we accomplished over the years in terms of resources and reforms, including the extension of Prop 301, which you worked on and were one of the architects of, but university bonding, community college CTE, results-based funding, all of these things are important. I'm proud that today we could say that with federal funding, so all in, we're at the highest per pupil adjusted for inflation point in our state's history. More to do, but it's not a bad point to be in. So on immigration, if you had to look at the 14 years, I've probably put as much time in that issue as any other issue. So on even before 1070, it's important to remember that it really all started with my tenure with the Legal Arizona Workers Act. And that was a bill that then Governor Napolitano pushed. And she got that bill after basically taunting Republican members of the legislature for in 2005-ish or so, sending her what she called an employee amnesty bill. So we got something that was, at the time, it went well beyond E-Verify, all sorts of sanctions on employers, even if they were acting in good faith. Fortunately, the way the law was implemented in some future changes didn't create the problems that we were concerned about. When we got to 1070, actually the chamber So the original versions of the bill had all sorts of enhanced employer sanctions. We fought against that. We successfully removed all of those provisions from the bill. Now, at that point, it's fair to say we didn't support the bill, but we were not going to the Capitol saying that the bill should be stopped. I think what we learned.
But you did modify it to the point where it took most of the egregious pieces out of it, as I recall.
Correct. But what we missed was just, and it's something we all learned after that is, we want to, Arizona is a welcoming state. I like to joke, I'm from another country called New York. Very few states. If I went to New York from Arizona and said, hey, I'd really like to run the state chamber there, it would be language that would not be suitable for this family program I'm on. But what we learned after 1070 is we have to band together as a business community and say, if we're going to do immigration reform, we need to do it on the federal level. And Jaime, we've been waiting since 1986 for whole-scale immigration reform. And if you fast forward to today, I believe that we need to at least get a down payment, a very meaningful down payment. And that means getting the Dreamer situation resolved, full legalization. The Arizona Chamber's position has been with a path to citizenship, but that needs to happen in calendar year 2021. We need that done at the federal level. But getting quickly back to some of the immigration battles on the state level, what we learned is that for our state's tourism industry, an industry we both love, and it's led by a great leader in Kim Sabo, is that reputationally, we have to make sure that our policies match the true spirit of Arizona, and that's as an exceptionally welcoming state.
Glenn, one of the things that you helped also to lead the charge on is particularly in getting out of the Great Recession. We went through that also early in your tenure. Arizona had not a very diversified economy. We relied essentially on growth. What are some of the things that you think was helpful from a economic growth standpoint for Arizona to create that diversification?
So the jobs bill 1 and 2 that happened, the first one happened about 10 years ago, including the creation of the Arizona Commerce Authority, which has been expertly run by Sandra Watson for most of the decade. What we did there, Jaime, and it was the whole business community coming together, and I know you played a major role as well, was to make sure we had competitive tax rates for companies looking to put a lot of jobs into the state. So we dramatically reduced over time and in a fiscally responsible way some of our different corporate and business taxes. So our corporate tax rate now is one of the most competitive in the country. We have a very competitive capital gains tax rate that's very helpful for entrepreneurial businesses. We have something called sales factor, which means if you're producing stuff, goods or services now, and you're exporting outside of the state, your tax burden is going to be very low. So you flash forward to today, Jaime, one of my favorite lines, and we love all jobs. We love the construction industry. But as we are speaking today, we have more manufacturing jobs in the state of Arizona than construction jobs, and that wasn't an accident. That was leadership, and it has diversified our economy to the point where for our kids, and I think this is important, and this is different from when we were growing up, our kids have a chance to work in any industry that their talents and their desires will take them. That was not the case when I came here in the early 1990s.
So moving forward, what do you think are some of the key things that we still should be looking at as a business community, but also state leadership and trying to tackle some of the issues that can continue to move Arizona forward?
We have some work to do on infrastructure. We made some real progress there on some of the roads, the key trade roads, and one of my favorite places, the best place, Nogales. We've made some real progress there. We've got some work to do and making sure.
It's amazing that construction. I was just down there to visit my mom, and it's amazing how that port of entry, how once that's opened, you can see the amount of goods that are going to flow from Mexico to the United States and vice versa.
Well, and part of that is going to be to make sure, I-17, I-10, and then eventually we get resources into I-11. So the two most populated cities, Vegas and Phoenix, without a real interstate, has that feature. But I also think on the education front, I mean, technology. Look, we're doing this in Zoom. Garrick Taylor from our shop loves to say, we're in the renaissance of the digital age. I mean, imagine this pandemic if this was 15 or 20 years ago. I don't know what we would have done. I mean, we would have had a Palm or something for capturing our dates, but we wouldn't be able to do this. We have to do so much on STEM education, in my opinion, research and development. I love what the universities are doing when it comes to the New Economy Initiative. But we have to have much more of a focus, in my opinion, on the K through 12 side on results. And we've got some really, I think, innovative education experts in the state that are going to help deliver on that, including the guy that I'm looking at on the Zoom call.
So you talked a lot about leadership and what it took to get us to this position. And you've had the privilege, I know, of working with some tremendous leaders nationally, but specifically here in Arizona. Can you tell us about some of your experience with those leaders and some of the ones that just stand out for you personally?
Well, I'm certainly, unfortunately, going to leave some people out, and so I'm going to apologize. But I really appreciated working with Governor Brewer and her team. We got hit by the Great Recession. When you talk about diversification, she's the one that really, with the leadership of Eileen Klein, Richard Bark, Michael Hunter, and others, Sandra Watson, came together and said, okay, we need a really good plan for the state. At the time, we had great leadership in the state legislature. The tandem of Kirk Adams and Andy Tobin, the state had a 1-2 punch for the ages. They really drove things to make clear that diversification was important. And both, I want to just take a quick detour. Both Kirk and Andy Tobin also saw the value of the relationship with Mexico. And it was under Speaker Tobin where he was able to get something in the budget to open up a trade office in Mexico that since has expanded to a couple of other offices, as well as an office in Israel. I think the current Senate president is fantastic. Karen Fann is a great leader. Rusty Bowers is as steady as it gets, and he's a Renaissance man, one of the great artists in this state. And I think the state is extremely lucky to have one of the best business people in our state's history, Doug Ducey, at the helm. We've never had anyone that can sell the state like Doug Ducey, and the results speak for themselves.
And you also left out, I think, at least the two gentlemen that come to my mind as individuals that had just an amazing national presence, and you worked with them very closely in Senators John McCain and Jon Kyl.
Well, okay, so I hope everyone will forgive me. I wanted to get to the federal side, and thank you for prompting me on that. We both share the blessings of having worked with and for great United States senators. So I worked for Senator Kyl in DC for many years. That's right. And that's why when I call you the Arizona's youngest statesman, it's not an accident. It's some of the training that you've had along the way. Senator McCain, probably the thing that I enjoyed the most during my time was going to events with him and him saying that I worked for him in his personal office when he was in the U.S., during his tenure, and I didn't. I never corrected him because I'm not correcting John McCain.
Correct John McCain, correct.
Now, in fairness, he also said I was the worst employee ever hired and asked the chamber to give me a chance. But I really just miss Senator McCain's incredible leadership. I think he will go down in history as one of the top 10 United States senators. I believe Senator Kyl is on that same list. And to have both of them working for Arizona for so many years.
What's disappointing is that people forget they were extremely partisan, right? They were very conservative. They loved the Republican Party, but it seemed like they had enough confidence in their ideas that they wouldn't mind going talking to Ted Kennedy on how they needed to persuade him, for instance. I just think that that's the difference.
Governing. All the things that I worked with for Senator Kyle in the 90s, they're still law. And why is that? Because they had bipartisan support. So on some things, Senator Feinstein, some things Senator Leahy worked on. Senator Kyle understood the concept, and so did Senator McCain. Getting 60-70% of a loaf and having buy-in from the other side is a good thing. And I'd be remiss not to thank Matt Salmon, who I worked for on 2 occasions, a great leader on trade. And it all started with an internship in DC with Jim Colby. My first substantive thing, Jaime, was helping to draft the 1-minute speech for him on NAFTA, believe it or not, in 1992.
So now you're headed to Texas. You're going to be literally in the next couple of weeks. You're going to be starting your new role. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you there? Just in summarizing, the big economic issues that you're going to be dealing with there.
We've built a great team here, and I've been very lucky that Garrett Taylor.
Well, Garrett Taylor was announced as the interim president, which I think allows for that stability to continue as you leave here.
So building out
great pick.
Well, absolutely, and building out a great team there is going to be important. I think for Texas, its economy is 5 times larger than Arizona's. It has 36 congressional seats. It's an export powerhouse to the point. One of the things that impressed me is the gentleman who drove me to the last time I was in Austin from the Uber to the hotel said, "Hey, do you know that Texas exports more than New York and California combined?" That's a lot of exports. I think for Texas, there's going to be, you've got an administration now on the federal side that's pretty hostile to the oil and gas industry. So that's going to be a challenge. The setup of the 2017 federal tax law, which has been very good for both Arizona and Texas in terms of people moving into our states, that's going to be under attack by the new administration at some point, likely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to be a lot of defense on the federal side. Immigration may provide an opportunity, like for both states. Immigration reform, getting more good people to come into our states, is good for the economy. And on the state level, it's interesting, Jaime. Liability reform, protections from frivolous COVID lawsuits is probably going to be the top item as I transition to Texas that we'll be working on. And that's something, as we speak right now, we're working on in Arizona.
Well, I know we could probably be talking for hours. The good news is that I was thinking of some things that I could, some funny moments that you and I have had together that I could share, but I know that you have the same kinds of material on me. So it's like mutual destruction. So I'll leave that out for now. But Glenn, as you get set up in Texas, you're going to always be an Arizonan in my heart. And I am extremely fortunate to have worked with you on so many important things, and also just to literally call you my friend. So really enjoyed it very much.
I mean, it's been a lot of fun along the way, but I just want to stress that on the trade issues, the Malara Alvarez team, a big reason why I've had these opportunities in Arizona and now in Texas is because of the things that I've learned from you. And then when you look at how it all culminated in Arizona playing, in my opinion, the leading role in the passage of the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, which is a boon for all 50 states, but particularly border states. We had some fun along the way. That's fine. And maybe 1 or 2 tequilas occasionally off-site. But I'm proud of what together we accomplished. And it's a great blessing for me to be able to call you a dear friend.
Thank you, Glenn. Well, when you get situated, maybe we can do a follow-up and see how Texas is treating you. And we look forward to keeping our relationship with you, Glenn, and Godspeed in all your endeavors.
Thank you, Jaime. Great to be on the program.
Thanks.